For years, the galaxy had lived in fear of an alien species known only as the HFY. No one knew exactly where they came from, but their reputation spread across the stars like wildfire. Worlds that had once been peaceful and prosperous were now nothing but burnt ruins. Entire cities lay in ashes. The HFY were ruthless, violent, and incredibly powerful. When they first appeared, many thought it was just another invasion. The galaxy had seen its fair share of wars and uprisings, but nothing had prepared them for the terror the HFY would bring. These aliens were different from anything anyone had ever seen. They didn't just invade, they destroyed. They didn't care about resources or land. They only wanted one thing: to dominate and control every living thing in their path. Their ships were enormous, dark, and covered in sharp, jagged metal. Each ship carried thousands of soldiers, each one stronger than the last. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Lasers that could cut through mountains, bombs that could turn an entire city into dust in a single strike. Any planet they attacked was left broken, lifeless, and enslaved. The people who survived were taken as prisoners, forced to work for the HFY, or become their soldiers in their endless quest for power. The HFY moved from planet to planet, their fleet growing larger with every world they conquered. There was no stopping them. They struck with such force that no army could fight back. No fleet of ships could stand against the might of the HFY warships. The galaxy's leaders gathered together to form a coalition to stop the invasion, but every time they tried to fight, they were defeated. The HFY didn't even see it as a challenge. To them, every planet was just another obstacle to remove. They enjoyed the fear they spread, the cries of the weak, the terror in the eyes of those who knew their worlds were about to be destroyed. It was all a game to them, and they were winning. Each world that fell was another notch in their belt. Each victory made them stronger, more confident. By the time they reached the planet Zeros, the last free world in the galaxy, there was little hope left. The people of Zeros had known of the HFY's brutality, but they were not ready to give up. They built defenses, they trained soldiers, and they prepared for the worst. But when the HFY fleet appeared in their skies, it was clear that all their efforts had been in vain. Zeros was wiped out in hours. It was after Zeros that the galaxy started to realize something that scared them even more than the HFY's weapons. The aliens were not just conquering worlds, they were enjoying it. They loved the fear they caused. Every victory, every world they wiped clean, only made them feel more invincible. It was as if nothing could stop them. The galaxy's strongest forces tried to mount a defense, but it was always the same. The HFY would show up, they would fight, and the HFY would win. Whispers began to spread about the one place the HFY had not yet reached, the planet Earth. No one really knew much about Earth. It was a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, known for its weak defenses and peaceful ways. Some even called it the forgotten world of the galaxy. Its people were not like the others. They didn't fight wars or seek power. But as the HFY moved closer, the question on everyone's mind was, would Earth be the place where they finally meet their match? Some believed the humans of Earth were too weak to stand against the HFY. Others were not so sure. Stories had started to surface of strange things happening on Earth. People from other worlds who had traveled there spoke of human resilience, an inner strength that couldn't be measured by weapons or technology. But no one knew if these stories were true. As the HFY drew nearer to Earth, a sense of doom washed over the galaxy. It was no longer about whether Earth could survive. It was about whether anyone in the galaxy could survive the HFY. The destruction they had left behind had been massive, and the thought of what they would do to Earth caused panic among those who still remembered what it meant to live free. But Earth had something that HFY didn't count on: the heart of its people. They had survived wars, hardship, and even natural disasters. They had no idea what was coming, but they weren't going down without a fight. They may not have known how to face the HFY, but one thing was certain: they were not going to kneel. The stage was set. The Tyre, so used to victory, would soon learn that Earth was a planet they could not easily conquer. The galaxy was already on edge. That HFY had taken planet after planet, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. Now, their massive warships had set their sights on Earth. The fear that had been spreading across the galaxy reached its peak as the alien fleet moved closer to the small blue planet. For the first time, Earth was about to face something bigger than anything it had ever known. As the HFY warships appeared in Earth's atmosphere, the entire world went silent. The aliens had arrived. People all around the globe saw the dark, enormous ships in the sky. It was like a dark cloud blocking the sun, casting a shadow over cities and towns. No one had ever seen anything like it before. The HFY had arrived in full force, their ships hanging over the cities like giants. Their arrival was a declaration of war. In a matter of hours, Earth's leaders were in emergency meetings. The governments knew they weren't prepared for an invasion like this. They had never faced anything like the HFY before. Despite the best efforts of Earth's military to defend the planet, they knew they were outmatched. The HFY had already destroyed countless worlds, and their weapons were far stronger than anything Earth had. There was nothing that could protect them now. People watched in fear as the warships hovered over major cities. The HFY didn't need to speak their intentions. The very presence of their ships sent a message. This planet will fall like the others. Across the world, families huddled together, unsure of what was coming next. Panic spread through the streets as people realized that the peaceful lives they had known were about to be turned upside down. The aliens made their first move. Massive beams of energy shot down from the warships, causing buildings to collapse and fires to start. The cities were torn apart as the HFY unleashed their terrifying weapons. The skies turned black as explosions rocked the ground. It was as if the world itself was shaking. The sound of destruction filled the air, and the people of Earth had no choice but to watch as their cities crumbled beneath the alien assault. Despite the chaos, Earth's leaders tried to organize a response. They ordered military forces to fight back, but it was clear that their weapons were useless against the alien fleet. Fighter jets and tanks were no match for the power of the HFY. The military tried to launch airstrikes, but their missiles were easily destroyed by the HFY's energy shields. Any resistance was met with overwhelming force. For the first time, Earth's military realized just how powerless they were against the HFY. But the people of Earth weren't ready to give up. Even though they knew they were outmatched, they refused to let their planet fall without a fight. Small groups of soldiers and civilians started to fight back. They took to the streets with whatever weapons they could find: guns, makeshift bombs, anything they could use to slow down the invaders. They didn't expect to win, but they knew they had to try. Earth's citizens showed courage and resilience, proving they weren't willing to surrender without a battle. As the days passed, the aliens continued their relentless attack. The HFY didn't care about the destruction they caused. To them, Earth was just another planet to conquer. They crushed any resistance with ease, making their dominance clear. The people of Earth were scared, but they refused to bow down. They held on to the hope that someone, or something, would stop the invasion. The world watched as the HFY's brutal assault continued. No one knew how long they could hold out, but Earth's leaders kept sending out messages, calling for help from other worlds. But as each day passed, it became clear that no one was coming. The galaxy had been too frightened of the HFY's power. No one was brave enough to challenge them. Earth was on its own. At the same time, whispers began to spread across the planet. Some people believed that Earth might have a chance to survive. They spoke of humans who had shown incredible courage in the face of impossible odds. Stories circulated of humans who had fought battles on their own worlds, defeating invaders and overcoming challenges no one thought they could. But no one knew if these stories were true. Earth had never faced a threat like the HFY, and there was no way to know if these legends of human strength could hold up against such a powerful enemy. As the days turned into weeks, the question on everyone's mind was, would Earth survive? The HFY had made their presence known, and it seemed like nothing could stop them. But deep inside, a quiet determination began to grow. The people of Earth weren't going to give up without a fight. They might not have the power to defeat the HFY yet, but they weren't going to let their world fall without trying to protect it. The fate of Earth was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The HFY had made a big mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The alien invasion had shaken Earth to its core. For weeks, the HFY had attacked, and every day felt like a battle for survival. Cities were destroyed, and the HFY showed no mercy. They had weapons that could wipe out entire armies, and their warships hovered over the planet, unstoppable. It seemed like there was no hope left for humanity. But deep inside, the people of Earth refused to accept defeat. They had seen what that HFY could do, and it was terrifying. But they also knew one thing. Humans had something that the HFY didn't understand. They had determination. The HFY thought they could crush Earth without any resistance, but they had underestimated human will. The first sign of resistance came from the soldiers who had survived the initial attacks. They were a small group at first, scattered across the world, but they weren't ready to give up. They gathered in secret, communicating through hidden channels, forming the beginning of a global resistance. They didn't have the technology or weapons to fight the HFY directly, but they had the spirit to fight back. In cities across the world, small groups of soldiers and civilians began to organize. They were ordinary people, mothers, fathers, teenagers, and workers, fighting side by side with the military. They didn't have much, but they were determined. They used whatever they could find: old weapons, homemade explosives, anything to slow the aliens down. One by one, these small resistance groups began to strike back. They ambushed alien patrols, sabotaged HFY supply lines, and planted bombs on their warships. At first, it seemed like a hopeless effort, but the HFY didn't realize something crucial. Humans would never stop fighting. Even with the odds against them, they'd fought for their homes, their families, and their planet. As the resistance grew, the HFY started to notice. They had expected Earth to fall quickly, but the humans were putting up more of a fight than they had imagined. At first, the HFY thought it was just a few rebels causing trouble. But soon, they realized it was more than that. It was a movement. The humans weren't backing down. The people of Earth, who had once been known for their peaceful ways, were showing the galaxy that they would do anything to protect their home. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for their very existence. In the heart of the battle, a young soldier named Sarah led a group of rebels in an attack on a key HFY base in the mountains. They had been planning for weeks, studying the movements of the alien forces. The soldiers were nervous, but Sarah's confidence gave them strength. She knew this was their chance to hit that HFY where it would hurt. They sneaked into the base under the cover of night, using the terrain to their advantage. They planted explosives and set traps for the HFY soldiers. It was a risky plan, but it had to work. As the first explosions rang out, the HFY were caught off guard. For a brief moment, it felt like the tide was turning. The resistance had taken the first step in proving that the HFY could bleed, that they could be hurt. But the fight was far from over. The HFY retaliated quickly, sending more forces to crush the resistance. They were not used to being attacked in this way. For the first time, they began to see that Earth wasn't as easy to conquer as they had thought. The humans didn't have the same advanced technology or weapons, but they had something more powerful: unbreakable will. Around the world, people were rising up. In the streets of major cities, civilians who had once been afraid began to take action. They built barricades, set up resistance camps, and helped the wounded. It wasn't just soldiers now, it was the entire planet fighting back. From the mountains to the oceans, from the deserts to the cities, humans stood together to face the HFY. Every time the HFY thought they had won, The humans came back stronger. Their resistance grew, and they began to organize on a global scale. The Sire couldn't understand it. No other species had ever fought back like this. The more the Sire attacked, the more determined the humans became. In space, Earth's military forces, though battered and outnumbered, launched surprise attacks against the alien fleet. They knew they couldn't beat the Sire with strength alone, so they used their knowledge of their own planet. They attacked in ways that the Sire didn't expect, hiding in the clouds, attacking from the shadows, and using guerrilla tactics to hit hard and fast. As the war raged on, the resistance grew bolder. They attacked alien supply ships, freeing prisoners and stealing weapons. They sent a message to the Sire: Earth was not going down without a fight. The Sire, still confident in their power, couldn't understand why the humans kept fighting. They thought they had already won, but Earth wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their future. And that made all the difference. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but one thing was clear. The Sire had underestimated humanity. They were about to learn that humans were not just survivors, they were fighters. The resistance against the Sire had grown. The small groups of rebels, soldiers, and civilians who had been fighting back were now ready for something bigger. They had gathered their forces, organized their plans, and prepared for the first major battle of the war. Earth had been through a lot, but the people weren't going to let their planet fall without giving it their all. The Sire had been underestimating humanity, thinking that their advanced weapons and warships would crush Earth's defenses with no effort. But the humans had been training, learning from their mistakes, and now they had a plan. The time had come for the first major confrontation. The battle would take place in a remote part of the world, a place that the Sire didn't think was important. But to the humans, it was perfect. The terrain would help them hide, and they knew the Sire would never expect them to launch such a big attack. It was going to be a surprise, one that would shake the invaders. Sarah, the young soldier who had been leading many of the small rebel groups, stood with her team, looking at the horizon. Her heart raced with excitement and fear. This wasn't going to be like the smaller attacks they had made before. This was the real thing. She was about to lead a full-scale assault against the Sire, and she knew the stakes were higher than ever. "We can do this," Sarah said to her team, trying to keep her voice steady. They had trained for this moment, and they were ready. "We fight for Earth, for our families, for our future." The team nodded, their faces set with determination. They had come together as a group of strangers, but now they were a family. They were all in this fight together, and nothing was going to stop them. The first move was theirs. They launched their attack in the dead of night, just as the Sire were getting comfortable. The aliens had no idea that a large group of humans had gathered so close. The humans used the cover of darkness and the rugged terrain to stay hidden, moving quickly and silently toward their targets. The Sire didn't know what hit them. Explosions lit up the night sky as the humans attacked their supply lines and energy sources. It was a brutal surprise, and the Sire were thrown into confusion. Their soldiers scrambled to defend themselves, but the humans were already in position, striking hard and fast. It was everything that Sire didn't expect. Coordinated, fierce, and determined. The humans had planned for weeks. They knew exactly where to hit and how to hit hard. Their attacks were precise, aimed at key points of the Sire's infrastructure. Every explosion weakened their hold on the region. Every soldier who fell to the humans' guns sent a message. Earth wasn't going to be conquered so easily. In the middle of the chaos, Sarah and her team pushed forward, fighting their way through the enemy lines. They were up against heavily armed Sire soldiers, but the humans didn't back down. They used their knowledge of the land to their advantage, taking the high ground and pushing the Sire back inch by inch. Each victory, no matter how small, gave them hope. But the Sire didn't give up without a fight. Their warships in the sky fired down beams of energy, trying to burn the humans off the ground. The air was filled with the sound of explosions and the roar of alien weapons. It felt like the world was falling apart. But even in the face of such destruction, the humans kept fighting. They didn't stop. They couldn't stop. Sarah's team fought their way toward the HFY's command center, the heart of the operation. It was the most dangerous part of the mission, but they had no choice. If they could take out the command center, that HFY would be thrown into disarray. It was their only chance to win the battle. As they neared the command center, they encountered heavy resistance. HFY soldiers surrounded the area, and the firefight was intense. But Sarah pushed forward, leading her team with courage and determination. She knew that this battle could turn the tide of the war, and she wasn't going to back down. Finally, they'd reached the command center. The HFY soldiers tried to stop them, but the humans had already planned their attack. With a final push, Sarah's team stormed the command center, planting explosives and taking out the enemy. The HFY were thrown into chaos as their operations ground to a halt. The humans had done it. They had won the first major battle of the war. But the cost had been high. The battle had been brutal, and many brave men and women had fallen. Yet the victory was a symbol of something greater. It was proof that the HFY could be defeated. It was a message to the invaders. Earth would not fall easily. As Sarah looked over the battlefield, she knew that this was just the beginning. The war was far from over, but the humans had taken the first step. They had shown the galaxy that when Earth fights back, it fights with everything it has, and that HFY would soon learn that they had made a terrible mistake. After the first major battle, the humans had proved something to the HFY. They were not going to be easily defeated. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about taking back their planet. And now the tide was starting to turn. The HFY, who had once been so sure of their victory, were beginning to see something they didn't expect. Humans were fighting back harder than ever. The victory at the command center had shaken the HFY. They had lost an important strategic base, and their forces were in disarray. For the first time, they were on the defensive, and the humans wasted no time. The resistance, now stronger than ever, took the fight to the HFY in ways they hadn't imagined. Sarah, the young leader of the rebels, felt the weight of what had happened. The victory was important, but it was only one battle. She knew that there was still much to do. The HFY were still out there, and they would come for Earth with more power, more weapons, and more troops. But Sarah wasn't afraid. She had seen what humanity could do, and she knew that they were capable of turning the tide. The humans had learned a lot in the past few weeks. They had learned how to fight the HFY, how to use the terrain to their advantage, and how to hit hard and fast. But they had also learned something else, the strength of their unity. People from all over the world, from every background and every corner of society, had come together to fight as one. That was the key. The HFY might have better weapons, but the humans had each other. Across the planet, the humans continued to fight back. They attacked supply lines, sabotaged enemy equipment, and freed captured soldiers. They knew that every small victory counted, and as the days passed, their attacks grew bolder. The HFY were no longer the unstoppable force they once were. They were on the back foot, and the humans were taking full advantage. One of the biggest turning points came when a group of rebel fighters managed to capture a HFY warship. It was a bold move, and the humans knew they were taking a huge risk. But it paid off. The rebels were able to reverse engineer some of the HFY technology, learning how their ships worked and how to disable them. It was a game changer. With this new knowledge, the humans were able to start taking down the HFY warships one by one. Sarah and her team were at the front of this new wave of attacks. They led a group of soldiers into the heart of HFY-controlled territory, determined to strike a decisive blow. The HFY thought their warships were invincible, but the humans had learned how to bring them down. The battle was fierce. The HFY retaliated with everything they had, sending wave after wave of troops and warships. But the humans were prepared. They used their knowledge of the alien technology to disable the warships, and their guerrilla tactics kept the HFY off balance. The human forces struck swiftly, hitting where the HFY least expected it. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the humans were winning. The HFY had underestimated Earth's ability to adapt and fight back. They had thought the humans were weak, but they had learned that humanity's strength wasn't just in their weapons, it was in their will to survive. The humans fought with everything they had, and that made all the difference. It wasn't just the soldiers fighting on the front lines. Back home, the people of Earth were doing their part too. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop new weapons and technology to use against the HFY. Farmers and workers continued to provide food and supplies to the resistance. Everyone played a role in the fight to turn the tide. The turning point came when the humans launched a coordinated attack on HFY stronghold. It was a huge risk, but it was the only way to end the HFY's grip on Earth. The attack was fast and precise, with humans using everything they had learned to outsmart the alien invaders. The HFY, still reeling from their previous losses, were caught off guard. The humans struck hard, taking out the HFY's weapons and communication centers. The stronghold, once thought to be impenetrable, fell. It was a massive victory, and it sent a clear message to the HFY. Earth wasn't going to roll over and die. The humans were in this fight to win it. As the HFY regrouped, they realized something they had never thought possible. Earth was no longer a weak planet to be crushed. The humans had turned the tide, and the HFY were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. For Sarah and the other leaders of the resistance, the victory was bittersweet. They knew the war was far from over, and many lives had been lost. But they also knew that the fight was now on their terms. The humans had shown the HFY that they could be beaten, and that was something no alien empire had ever thought possible. The tide had truly turned, and now, the HFY would learn just how powerful humanity could be when they fought for their planet, their homes, and their future. The humans had come a long way. From being terrified survivors hiding in the shadows, they had risen to become a force that even the mighty HFY could no longer ignore. But while victories had been won, the war was far from over. The HFY, though weakened, still held critical strongholds across the planet. If Earth was to be free, the humans needed one last, decisive push. Sarah stood at the front of the command center, a large, makeshift bunker hidden deep in the mountains. Around her, commanders and leaders from all over the world gathered, their faces a mix of exhaustion and determination. They had fought for months, and the cost had been high. But now, they had a chance to end it all. The HFY are falling back, but they won't give up, Sarah said, pointing to a map displayed on a holographic table. Their main fleet is regrouping here, at the central base. If we can take it out, we'll cripple their operations on Earth. The central base was more than just a stronghold. It was the heart of the HFY's invasion strategy. It housed their main communication systems, supply chains, and warship docks. Destroying it would mean cutting off the HFY from reinforcements and supplies, forcing them to abandon their plans for Earth. But it wouldn't be easy. The base was heavily fortified, surrounded by layers of defense systems, and guarded by some of the HFY's most advanced warships. It was a gamble, and everyone in the room knew it. Sarah's voice was steady. This is our chance to end this war. If we fail, they'll recover, and we may not get another opportunity. But if we succeed, Earth will be free. The room fell silent for a moment. Then, one by one, the leaders nodded. The humans had come too far to back down now. The preparations began immediately. Across the planet, resistance groups coordinated their attacks, drawing HFY forces away from the central base. Meanwhile, engineers worked tirelessly to arm the human fleet with the alien technology they had salvaged. The captured HFY warship, now fully operational and manned by human pilots, became the centerpiece of their plan. As the day of the attack approached, the air was filled with tension. Soldiers wrote letters to loved ones, engineers triple-checked every piece of equipment, and commanders reviewed battle plans over and over. Everyone knew the risks, but no one hesitated. On the morning of the attack, Sarah addressed the troops. "Today, we fight not just for our planet, but for every life lost, every home destroyed, and every child who deserves a future. This is our moment. Let's take it." The humans launched their assault with precision. Fighter jets, modified with HFY technology, soared through the skies, targeting the enemy's outer defenses. Ground forces moved swiftly, using guerrilla tactics to take down key structures. The HFY, caught off guard by the humans' boldness, scrambled to respond. As the battle raged on, the captured HFY warship, now named Liberty's Wrath, entered the fray. It was a sight to behold. Human pilots navigating the alien craft with ease, using its advanced weapons to punch through the HFY's remaining fleet. For the first time, the humans had firepower to match their enemies. The HFY fought back with everything they had. Their warships unleashed powerful energy blasts, and their ground troops swarmed the humans' positions. But the humans held their ground. They were no longer the prey. They were the hunters. At the heart of the battle, Sarah led a team of elite soldiers into the central base. Their mission was to disable the HFY's command systems, cutting off their ability to coordinate the fight. The base was a maze of corridors and traps, but the team moved with purpose. They had trained for this moment, and they weren't going to fail. As they reached the control room, they faced a fierce resistance. HFY soldiers, armed with plasma rifles, blocked their path. A fierce firefight erupted, but the humans fought with skill and determination. Inch by inch, they pushed forward until, finally, they reached the main control panel. Sarah placed the explosive charges while her team held off the remaining HFY. The countdown began, and the team made their escape, dodging enemy fire as the base began to crumble. Outside, the Liberty's Wrath delivered the final blow, firing a massive energy blast that destroyed the HFY's last remaining warship. The central base erupted in a blinding explosion, and with it, the HFY's grip on Earth was broken. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned the tide of the war and delivered a crushing blow to their invaders. As the smoke cleared, the humans stood victorious. Cheers erupted across the planet as news of the victory spread. For the first time in months, there was hope. That HFY, once feared as unstoppable, had been defeated by the very species they had underestimated. Sarah looked up at the sky, now free of HFY warships. "We did it," she whispered, her voice filled with both relief and determination. The war wasn't over, but the final push had shown the galaxy one undeniable truth. Humanity would never back down. The battle had ended, but its echoes remained. The once feared HFY invaders were no more. Across Earth, the humans stood victorious, their spirits soaring despite their weary bodies. What seemed impossible only months ago had become a reality. The HFY had been defeated, and humanity had reclaimed its home. Sarah stood on a makeshift stage in the heart of what used to be the HFY's central base. Now it was just rubble, a powerful symbol of their triumph. Around her, soldiers, engineers, medics, and civilians gathered, their faces a mix of joy and disbelief. This was the moment they had dreamed of, fought for, and bled for. She raised her voice, amplified by a salvaged HFY communication device. "Today, we celebrate not just a victory but survival itself. They came to destroy us, to erase us from existence. But we stood strong. We fought back. And now, we are free." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices filling the air like a tidal wave of hope. Children waved makeshift flags, parents held each other tightly, and soldiers lifted their fists in triumph. Humanity, beaten but unbroken, had proven its resilience once again. As celebrations unfolded across the planet, the remaining HFY survivors surrendered, broken and demoralized. The once mighty aliens were no longer the terrifying force that had terrorized the galaxy. Under close watch, they were rounded up and confined. Humanity had no intention of stooping to their level of cruelty, but justice had to be served. Scientists and leaders convened to decide the HFY's fate. Some argued for their execution, while others called for mercy. Sarah, who had become a symbol of Earth's resistance, spoke with calm conviction. We fought them because they tried to take away what makes us human: our compassion, our love for life. If we kill them all now, we become no better than they were. In the end, it was decided that the surviving HFY would be sent back to their galaxy with one clear message: never return to Earth. The same captured HFY warship, Liberty's Wrath, would serve as their transport. As it ascended into the sky, escorted by human ships, that HFY left Earth for good. Rebuilding the planet was the next great challenge. The war had left cities in ruins, forests scorched, and oceans polluted. But humanity was no stranger to hardship. Across continents, people came together to repair the damage. Former rival nations worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the wake of their shared struggle. Engineers repurposed alien technology to speed up reconstruction. The energy shields and plasma generators that once protected HFY bases now powered human cities. Scientists, fascinated by the HFY's advanced systems, began integrating them into medicine, agriculture, and infrastructure. What was once a source of destruction became a tool for progress. Children who had lived in fear of the invaders now played in the open fields. Schools reopened, teaching the next generation not just about the horrors of war, but also the strength of unity. Artists and writers captured the story of humanity's survival, ensuring that future generations would remember what it meant to stand together against all odds. Months later, a monumental gathering took place at the United Earth Council, a newly formed alliance that represented humanity as a whole. Leaders from every nation sat in a massive hall, its walls adorned with images of Earth's journey through the war. At the center of the room stood Sarah, now considered a hero by all. "The HFY underestimated us," she began, her voice steady and powerful. "They thought we were weak because we didn't have their technology or their numbers, but they didn't understand what makes us human: our ability to adapt, to fight for what we love, and to never give up. Today we are stronger than ever, not just because we won a war, but because we found unity in the face of destruction." The room erupted into applause. Humanity had not only survived, it had evolved. Word of Earth's victory spread beyond the planet. Alien species that had once suffered under the HFY's tyranny heard of the humans' triumph. Messages of congratulations and curiosity began arriving from across the stars. Some were cautious, wary of humanity's newfound strength. Others sought alliances, hoping to learn from the species that had defeated the galaxy's greatest terror. For the first time, Earth was no longer alone in the universe. But this time, humanity was ready. The captured HFY technology had given them a glimpse of the wider galaxy, and they were determined to explore it, not as conquerors, but as equals. One evening, as Sarah stood on a hill overlooking the rebuilt city, she reflected on everything that had happened. The scars of the war were still visible, but so was the hope for a brighter future. A young girl approached her, holding a small handmade flag of Earth. "My dad says you're a hero," the girl said shyly. Sarah smiled, kneeling to the child's height. "The real heroes are all of us. We won this together." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the horizon, Sarah looked up at the sky. Earth was no longer just a small, vulnerable planet. It was a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience. The humans had not only survived, they had triumphed, and the galaxy would never forget it.